Welcome back to 20-somethings TV, the show for 20-somethings by 20-somethings. Today, we're talking about some serious issues that center around child abuse, child endangerment, and cancer. Viewer discretion is advised. Joining me on this journey, as always, are my fellow children of divorce, Lainey, Kaylee, and John Dean, and I'm Justin Peters. John here is fresh off of Johnny Somethings. You can check that out when you're done watching this, or don't. It doesn't affect our grades. So, starting off, all of our childhoods took a devastating blow this past week with the release of Investigations Discovery's exposing documentary on Nickelodeon's history with abuse and sexual harassment.
In the early 90s, Nickelodeon was kid everything. And this is when Dan Schneider arrives, Nickelodeon's golden boy. He created these shows that were hugely successful for them. He launched the careers of child actors who became major stars.
For 20 years, he shaped children's entertainment and culture, but that marked one of the darkest chapters.
Dan's treatment of people on his shows was an open secret.
How safe can any kids be in that environment? There would be even bigger problems down the line with actual pedophiles on set.
I've been waiting 17 years for today.
It wasn't dealing with anybody on the shows or anything, right?
It was a child actor.
On one of our shows.
Yes.
Have you ever told your story publicly before?
Yeah, so that has been pretty much all over my mind for like the last week. I don't know about you guys. Nickelodeon was a huge part of my childhood. A lot of the shows that Dan Schneider made a part of that as well. I would love to know what you guys have to say about it.
It's a very difficult thing to really even begin to talk about because of the gravity of this situation and because this is something that we grew up with, and it's like my family, like my friends always joke with me because I had strict parents growing up, and there were certain shows I wasn't allowed to watch, and some of them were Nickelodeon shows. My mom would watch them first and be like, okay, is this okay or not? And a lot of Nickelodeon shows were kind of off the table, and I never really knew why. So then going back and watching a lot of that, it was disturbing as an adult. It's extremely disturbing. And I remember like my friends would talk about these shows, and I had no idea what it was like. It's so odd to see, like, because it's like, oh, do you have like younger siblings? Do you have nieces and nephews? Do you have like younger cousins? And it's like, just the thought of them growing up and watching that now is, oh my God, it's terrifying almost to see the exposure, the things these kids are exposed to without them really knowing it. And the fact that so many people saw it and so no one did anything about any of this. Dan Schneider got away with all of it.
Not just him either, but the other predators mentioned in the documentary too.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's devastating to think about because when we were all young, we watched these shows and they absolutely impacted how we are as, today. I mean, we always say it, we're all film majors. And it's sad to see how something that we, grew up on, like something that honestly could have absolutely been inspiration towards our field today, can be so, it's like, it's a veil that it just completely was, like it shed light on everything that was not talked about. And these children have gone through the unimaginable. And especially considering like parents that are on set but can't see their kids in the other room, like people will just take the kids, bring them to set, have them do a scene, bring them back, and then that's really it. The parents don't really have a say. And then if the parents do say something, sometimes it can be taken out on the children. And that is something that is so horrifying and just completely it shatters your soul.
It's a violation of trust between the parent and the kid too. Like listening to some of those parents talk about like what they had to go through, like basically like losing their kids like that. It's incredible. It was just insane and incredibly hard to listen to. But
I think a really impactful part of it is that like, you know, like there's been like reports of like predators like on TV and whatever, like To Catch a Predator and stuff like that, and those shows like you watch and it's like you know what you're going into, but like I think what was so shocking about this like documentary is that like it was happening like right in front of our eyes, and like obviously we didn't see behind the scenes, but like everything we watched was like a byproduct of like this toxic environment, and so it's crazy to have like all those years of experience with all that, you know.
Yeah, and the ringleader of this nightmare circus, Dan Schneider, publicly addressed these issues in a very, very, very staged apology, talking to the guy who played Tebow from iCarly, doing himself and the victims no favors by just trying to make himself look good.
It was very difficult, me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, it was disturbing.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just you can just
It's
tell.
disgusting.
It's staged like it's a podcast, which it's not. It is a 20-minute, just absolute like Dan Schneider glory fest,
Yeah.
and like I don't know.
And the fact that he has said he wants to get back into children's television is horrendous. It is horrifying. And as they said in the documentary, like, this can't happen again. It is not only the like execs' jobs, but it is everyone involved in the industry's job to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and to make sure that we feel comfortable speaking up. But that apology, unbelievable. You can apologize.
It's not an apology.
Like, whatever, that little statement, whatever we're calling it, like, because it was, you're right, it was not an apology. It was him admitting that he had done these things and being like, yeah, you know, I didn't know better.
I do now. Fuck.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely disgusting.
I think one of the saddest parts is that, like, it even though you hope that they don't let him work in children's television again, you know that it's a possibility, unfortunately, and it's not. I mean, it's such a possibility. Like, not to go too deep into details, but you know, Brian Peck, who was a convicted sex offender who abused children on the shows, he ended up working in children's television again after he got out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd think a convicted felon wouldn't be able to, and so someone like Dan, who's never been actually like convicted of anything, but he's just a creep and a nightmare to work with on the set, it's all too possible and all too scary to think about.
And if not him, someone else like him.
Exactly. Like, you have to think about how many people in the world are doing things with bad intentions, or just how many people haven't been caught. Like, the only reason he's apologizing is because he got caught. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason.
He got caught before, but now
He got
that
caught,
the
like, it just got
documentary is,
brushed
like,
under the rug. And the thing is, it's like with Nickelodeon going, with a lot of the shows going on Netflix, like, for the past couple of years, a lot of it's resurfaced. He got caught all over again. He's covering his ass.
And with the massages, like,
oh my God.
it's honestly, in talking, like, when watching it about, like, the women, like, the writers, and the sexism that was absolutely showcased with, like, the wardrobe designers, like, they were the fact that they would get called in to like give this man massages is absolutely, it's crazy.
The statement that he literally said, like, women are not funny, to a woman writer that, like, he hired half of, you know, because he split their salary.
Yeah. I mean, misogyny in film is unfortunately extremely common, and it's something that needs to be fought against very hard. And women's rights in film really need to be considered. And I feel like this documentary brings every one of these little issues that are all constantly moving in production to light, because it wasn't just about child abuse. It was also about misogyny. It was also about assault. It was about set etiquette, working conditions, even about union work too. It's just so much. It's such a complicated industry, and there's so many people that abuse it.
And the last thing we wanted to touch on today was the announcement of Kate Middleton's return to society, to announce that she's been battling cancer for the last year or so.
In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
So, kind of like how the documentary sheds light on how we are so obsessed with like the personal lives of these actors and we all know that the entire internet, and ourselves included, partook in some of the conspiracy theories about where Kate Middleton had been, how mysterious and how suspicious it was. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on like her coming out like this and how like to feel about it, because it's not. I certainly don't feel good about it.
Me neither. I didn't know this was happening until you guys like said something, because I wasn't here last week. I'll say that. I didn't do the speculating, but I think that it's a really weird place, if that makes sense. Because on one hand you have celebrities that are there to make us entertained and to entertain us, but then you have the royal family, which are figureheads and are there for people to be invested in their personal lives. But it walks such a fine line, because people still do have a right to privacy, you know? And I think that the internet just exacerbates it and blurs these lines even more. I mean, I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. I hate true crime. I'm not on social media because I don't want to be involved in any of this. So like watching Quiet on Set and then discussing this was like a super weird research process for me, because I was like, like all of this feels weird. It feels wrong in an odd way.
I think it's been so blasted out of proportions. Like, I feel like whenever we get a whiff of something, immediately we have to like, we just keep building up and up and up, and we don't know what, I think our society doesn't know when to stop. And then when we get too far, then it hurts those that we are talking about. And I feel like we just have to be better.
It's like in real life, like with people you know, you wouldn't start being like, oh, I haven't seen Jerry in the office, you know, I wonder all these things, making up, I mean, some people do that, but they're not the people you tend to be friends with. It makes me think of, you know, Chadwick Boseman, a couple months before he passed away of cancer. He was like live, and people were like making fun of the way he looked and how he was like really thin. They were like making fun of him, not knowing what was going on, and then when he was pronounced, you know, dead, everyone kicked themselves, you know.
All the time, people talk about Selena Gomez in the way that, you know, and they talk about Ariana Grande. They talk about, like, everybody is, you know, a target. It's sad.
Everyone's entitled to their personal life,
Absolutely.
but no one's entitled to violating it. You know what I mean? And I think that with the internet and celebrity culture now, we like to think that we do have that right because they put themselves into the public image. So it's like, well, if they're in the public image, they should be okay with this.
Of course.
Well, on a lighter note, it's almost April. No? All right, well, I guess that's going to do it for us on this episode of 20-somethings. Thank you for watching. Stay 20. And if you're already 20, stay 20-er.